And hello. Welcome back to the Gay Racing Podcast. It is bonus episode number 3 of Pride Month. Another special guest episode this week. 3 for Dale. Alex, who do we have on today?
Well, we didn't have enough Zacks on the podcast, so we have invited another Zack to the podcast. We have Zack Herrin here with us. Welcome to the podcast, Zack.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing great. Thank you for being here. And we were talking before the show, how am I going to handle having 2 Zacks on the pod? We'll see how this goes.
You could call him Mr. Herrin. I bet no one ever calls you Mr. Herrin. That'd be great.
Sounds so old and distinguished.
So professional.
Or I could call you Zachary, and I'll call him Zach. Like, we'll just do that.
No.
Are you Zachary? Zach?
I ain't no Zachary. I keep it simple. I keep it very simple. I don't know what Zachary. You can do. I don't know, you call me Mr. Larson fan over here. So at least I don't have that problem. So Zach, you have made a few starts in the ARCA series, which we'll get to in a minute, the ARCA Menard series. But we wanted to let you kind of introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know who Zack Herrin is, and what do you have going on with your racing career in 2025?
Yeah, right. So in the big old NASCAR ladder, I'm thankful enough to be NASCAR's ARCA Menard series, and we're not on track. I am super deep into gardening right now, so everything is Martha Stewart, Ina Garden, living up my dreams of one day having something like what they have in their yard. So that's all I got going on. Pretty boring person, nothing special, nothing too flashy either.
Now, don't sell yourself too short here, because I mean, you have raced at Daytona, you've raced at Mid-Ohio, and something we wanted to ask you is just like, I mean, you haven't been in a car this year, but what are you kind of looking for in the future and everything? Like, when would you like to get back into a car? Do you have goals for that?
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. If I can answer that shortly. I would love to be in the car, right? I think we're going on 2 years now since I've been out. So it really freaking sucks to be out of the car this long. I don't come from family money. I never have. I was thankful enough that my parents could afford to carry on my superbike racing until I was about 16. But even then, that was a big financial strain for my family, having to do it 2 brothers in a row, right?
Right.
So since I was about 17, if I wanted to race, I had to figure out how to get it paid for. And we were nowhere near. We were like 2/10 the cost of what it cost to run a stock car for a year. So it was a huge shock to me learning the business side of this and figuring out, well, holy shit, I'm supposed to get $1.5 million now just for ARCA. And then now you're telling me $2 million for trucks, and it just scales up. I'm like, well, if I can daydream, I guess this is one daydream I can stick to, because at times it feels unrealistic and unachievable. And for someone like me, it feels like I can exist in a space like NASCAR, but I don't like being told no. I figure out one way or another. And speaking of the no's, they've become numb to me. So I get one, it just motivates me to find another one, and that another one maybe turns into a little bit of yes or not.
Right. Walk me through a little bit what your career looked like. Like, how did you get to ARCA? Because obviously there's like a bunch of steps before ARCA. What did that look like for you?
Well, hopefully no one from NASCAR is listening to this. But no, I started riding motorcycles when I was 2. Something that was kind of a weekend hobby when for my dad turned into a family tradition, right? Same as every racing family. So we're out in Los Angeles, California, driving all the way across the country on most weekends, just racing bikes. And, again, my older brother, he's gone on still to have a really successful career. He's won multiple professional championships. He's raced in MotoGP. He's one of a few Americans to do that as well. So I always knew what it would take and what it would to get to those levels. And I didn't have, things given to me. I had to prove through his partners that I can be as successful as he was. Again, not having the family money to just put me there. So after years of racing superbikes and reaching to a point where, 16, I started racing professionally and felt like this should have been the high of my career, right? Something I should have really been enjoying. It was probably one of the most difficult parts of my journey so far. Mentally, I was struggling so hard with hiding who I was, and then showing up at the racetrack as that alternate version of myself that I created to be that what I needed to be, right, at the racetrack for my partners, my team, and myself. And then I kind of stepped away from everything. And that time away from the track allowed me to focus on who I was as a person, who I knew I'd always been. And once I kind of came to grow into that person that I am today and the one I love today so much, and to come out to my family and close friends, but to still be so rooted in motorsports, right? You can't just remove myself from it and act like it never happened. I'm an athlete. I'm a racer. So all of my journey, no matter what took me away and what I did out on the side, I was always thinking about racing. So I told myself, if I'm going to figure this out, which first of all, I got the courage. I took my now husband to his first NASCAR race. And he grew up in Georgia. His brother loved it. He was like, this is the most redneck thing ever. I want nothing to do with it. So I take him, and it was him just sitting there and getting to experience that with him is where I found the courage. I was like, you know what? If I can do this with him or someone like him by my side, I can figure it out. And NASCAR was always cool to me. I don't know, it was the fact that it's always been the number one motorsport in North America, and it's pretty big even throughout globally. And we were always trying to chase up to be NASCAR one day in superbikes. It was never going to happen in America.
Right.
So it always looked cool and neat and loud and different. And I was like, well, shit, we're going to figure it out. I'm going to go race NASCAR. I went to Phoenix and I got in an ARCA car, and I think we ran pretty well, especially with the amount of dollars that we were able to bring there and the equipment that we got in. But up until that point, I had driven a legend car once. I'd never been in anything like that. So I was like, this is terrible. I didn't go to sleep all night. I was going to throw up every 5 minutes.
I can imagine.
I had to get up and do an interview that morning too, at like 5:30 in the morning. And that's when they did that sky experience at Phoenix where they rose that table up above the track. Like
I remember that. Oh, that was so crazy.
So NASCAR called me and they said, hey, will you come do this spot? And I said, sure, of course. And I'm up there, and the weirdest moment is I felt so serene throughout that whole weekend, was up there just relaxing, seeing the sunrise. And from there, kind of the nerves kicked off. And I was like, all right, no, you know what you can do, believe in yourself. You got here for a reason. You have talent. We did this with 2 less wheels before. We can figure it out with 4.
Right.
Nice. And I know it's been a while, but for you, like for that first race weekend and when you went to Daytona and Mid-Ohio, like what was your typical race weekend? Or even go back to your Superbike days. What was your typical race weekend of just preparing? Were you like studying the tracks, other drivers, or were you training? What were you doing?
Nothing too special, right? I try and unsubscribe from those like routine things that I have to do, because if I'm like, I didn't eat an odd number of vegetables before the race, I fucked up. Then it will allow myself to always look back on that and be like, well, that's because you didn't do that. And then I'll get in my head.
Yeah.
So really for me, leading up the whole week is hydration, getting good rest, eating clean. But as far as race day stuff, track walks, I really love track walks, seeing the physical surface and getting to see what things look like around the track so I can pick up on like brake markers and stuff that I learned from my road race days. And then music. I kind of listen to music in my day-to-day life. And if I want to find my happy place to be calm, I need to bring music with me at the track.
What kind of music, or what artists?
I think I'll listen to everything, but if we can eliminate, I would probably say I'm fine without country or like rap, but everything else, there's some alternative music, there's some hard metal, there's some everything, jazzy. I'll do it all. Nice.
And I keep mentioning your ARCA start at Daytona, and my Zack here, Zack with the K, loves Daytona.
Favorite track in the world. Anything with any kind of wheels and a motor, I would be willing to race at Daytona. However, I would still be very scared. Like I'm trying to imagine like pulling off pit road for the very first time in whatever kind of vehicle, full size stock car. What was that like? Because I've done it in iRacing, but I can't imagine doing it in real life,
So I think for me, the first time I raced there was 2012. I was 16. I was on a bike that weighed pretty much maybe twice my weight, right? And we're going 175 miles an hour, brushing up right against the wall. There was like 52 bikes in my rookie race that year, and it was like the biggest entry in years. And I was like, this is great. This is awesome. I had so much fun. Nice, solid top 10 finish. Then we go back and we get into this massive stock car. And I'm out there. And again, right, money's always been my big issue. So we got the team paid. But if this car gets wrecked, there's no money to pay this team to rebuild this car. So it's always been like a fear that I put myself into. I'm like, I need to be safe. I need to preserve this car. We need to get through it. But ARCA, I love it so much, but there's such a wide range of talent and there's such a wide range of equipment. So when you're just trying to find a spot, for me, I just wanted to sit comfortable. We knew the car was decent speed for what we were in, right? I think we ended up getting like the third fastest lap time actually out of the duration of the race. So we knew we were comfortable as a pusher, but just finding a routine around some cars that I was comfortable to stick with, to not feel like every other second I'm going to get taken out. So to answer, I think being in a car was so much more intense than a bike, and I almost want to go back to the bike. But it was wild. It was a crazy experience. Unfortunately, that race got cut short. We had some debris hit our brake lines, so it cut all of our brake fluid. And we got to the halfway point, and it was just to the point where if a caution came out and I needed to check up on the field when we're in a tight pack,
it's not safe.
I was having to pull up completely out of the pack just to fly by and then let them catch me. I was like, I'm not going to risk myself and my safety and everyone else's for this, right? I at this point, I have more experience, I think, than half that field did, no matter my background. And I was like, this is just not what we're going to do here. But no, it's pretty wild feeling. It feels like a roller coaster effect, the way that the car tilts in and out of the banking and your head just kind of moves with it. It's nuts. It's wild.
I like how you mentioned just like, I can imagine it's really hard to trust anybody in that field. I mean, we watched ARCA races at super speedways every year, and like those cars, like they don't look very glued to the ground, especially like off the corners. Like handling's a major factor, and you're in a pack of a bunch of other drivers who, again, maybe they are less experienced than you, more experienced than you. You don't really know what to expect from them. What was your mentality like? I guess to elaborate further, like in going into the race, like pre-race, what was your mentality?
Same as going into Phoenix, right? So we go to Phoenix, we go to a mile, kind of tricky mile track, and then we jump over to Daytona. I just wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to absorb everything that I was feeling. I wanted to absorb everything that the drivers were doing around me.
That's smart.
And I wanted to figure out what those drivers looked like, especially since we left a West race. About half the drivers I'd never even seen on track before. So it was so much to learn. And then navigating how the car felt in the pack and me being so green, and how to relay that info back to the team and something that makes sense for me in my head was another big challenge. But I think once we kind of put the pieces together after the race, what I was feeling and talking to others like Justin Allgaier, a good friend of mine, he's helped me a lot. And then he's able to kind of articulate what I was feeling and teach me, right? So this is what the car is doing. This is how you're affecting it. The way I was driving into the corners. So it was so much to learn. But I think based off of one, I'm comfortable to say I kind of hate super speedway racing.
I bet.
Awful. I mean, we're just doing all this to wreck all these cars. And that's like the big boy series. Like, and there's definitely criticism that like ARCA shouldn't be at Daytona. And part of me is like, well, I don't know. These guys got to learn how to do super speedway racing somewhere. But
no,
also, do we really need to wreck all these cars? Like, I don't know. I mean, you mentioned like you went into that weekend with the mentality of I need to preserve this car because there's just money doesn't grow on trees in this situation. So why are we? I don't know why we're gonna put all these teams in that kind of situation, pack racing.
Yeah, no, you're totally right though. We need it. It's great to be there. It's great to be there for the experience. It's great to be there for partners and our viewership. It's everything we need to sell to get in the car for someone like me. Maybe does ARCA need to go to Daytona with everyone else for the season opener? I don't know. Maybe we can kind of put a pause and warm up the series a little bit and get everyone comfortable to racing routine and then visit a super speedway later. But it's neat. It's cool. It's Daytona, so it brings its challenges for a reason.
It's such a special track to me. I've never even been to it. Since I was a kid, it's such a special track to me. Not even just NASCAR, sports car racing. But so your bike race, was that during like Daytona Bike Week, like with the that's so cool.
Yeah,
I used to watch those on Speed Channel. Oh, so cool! What a cool facility. I mean, literally, like the World Center of Racing. They call it that for a reason. Anyway, that's enough of me, Alex, yapping about Daytona. We'll move on from that.
Yeah. No, Daytona is awesome. And was the Superbike race was it like the road course or was it another track at Daytona?
We
like
run
course, right?
the IMSA course. So the same course
Cool.
they run at Rolex. So we got the banking and the full infield.
Yeah.
It's a big lap, especially for us on bikes. It was like, there's a really long time to be out there.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about pride in racing. We're all gay here. We're going to talk about it.
We are?
Zack.
No.
Really? Breaking news.
I didn't approve this.
Breaking gay news.
I'm going to have to do so much PR work after this.
Oh, no. Well, you were honored at the NASCAR Drive for Diversity Awards in the developmental series category last year. And I just wanted to ask you, like, what did getting that award like mean to you in that moment?
Maybe I have more pull that the fact that they didn't continue it. So did all of the hate for me cancel that award ceremony? No, it was very cool. It was amazing. It was surreal. Being very fresh into the world of NASCAR, to have my journey recognized and my drive to want to be there made me feel valued. It made me feel like I can make a space here for myself. As long as we can get the bills paid, I have a spot on the track and I'm deserving of that. And just kind of experience everything that the Diversity Awards was and what it was doing, and all of these other people who were being recognized, some who I knew and some who I've never heard of, and to hear their stories too. It was cool. It's inspiring. It's kind of like going to some really neat LGBTQ plus event and feeling that room and how empowering and supportive everyone is in there. And then to be like, okay, now we're going to do that, but in motorsports, like, real shocker. Like, you would have never expect to bring people like that together in a space to celebrate those things. So it was surreal. It's wild.
That's awesome. But of course, this year NASCAR they say they rebranded the Drive for Diversity program. It's now just the Driver Development Program. LGBTQ plus individuals were never a part of the Drive for Diversity program. It was kind of like an adjacent sort of thing. Like, it wasn't in the program, but it was kind of associated-ish. But how do you personally feel about that program basically going away?
Yeah, when I decided to kind of make this whole career trajectory path into NASCAR, the Drive for Diversity program was something I had looked at. And through building a relationship with various verticals of leadership within NASCAR, I had brought it up. It's like, even though I'm aging out of this program, the work that me and everyone else are going to be doing to create opportunities and pathways for others like me need to be shown that there are opportunities that they can chase. And there was nothing like that for the diversity program at the time. And I think the following year, before it got rebranded and changed the name, they eliminated kind of a more broader description as to how you qualify into it. I think it pretty much just ended with, if you're under this age and you feel diverse, kind of submit and we'll go from there. But as far as them rebranding, I'm trying to look at it from all the positives and where we are today currently in our climate. We have people on both sides of pit road. They're scared of something. So whatever we need to do to make people feel comfortable to just move forward and stay moving forward is all I'm hoping for. And I think forward we can continue progressing. It might not be today, and it's probably not looking like tomorrow, but a lot of work's been done, right? I think for me and a lot of people before me. So we can't forget that, and we have to remember that and just think about the bigger picture in the future.
I can appreciate that more optimistic view of it. Yeah.
There's a lot of negativity, and especially if we all focus on it, right? It can get pretty dark.
Yeah. So another question for you, like, how do you feel about you have a more optimistic view on it, it seems, but the current state of pride in NASCAR, they didn't really acknowledge it on social media. They had a logo in the grass at Michigan, and they only acknowledged it in a social media post on LinkedIn. Last year, they had merch. They had posted all over social media. Where do you stand on that?
I don't like the feeling that we're stepping backwards. NASCAR, right? It's a professional sports body. It's a corporate organization. They need to do what they need to do to not fall into what everyone has created, this power behind a cancel culture. So I get it to an extent. It makes me mad. I'm not happy about it, but it's like, what else can they do? What are their other options if they continue doing the support, and then, God forbid, some terrible backlash comes from it, and then it's like now NASCAR is in every headlines for all of the worst reasons, and the internet gets all riled up, and then we see some Bud Light chaos or some Target chaos in a sport that we don't want to see fall like that. So it's me and I think others just trying to focus on, okay, we're not happy with this here, but we need to continue moving forward, not going too far backwards. And maybe this will just be a flash in the pan and we can just kind of forget that in a few years.
Yeah, because my perspective on it a little bit is I feel like they're trying to stay low key about it. But we've asked other people, and even me and Alex have just talked about it. Is that the right move? I don't think anyone really knows, because, pride is also at the same time about being, well, proud, loud. But if your situation calls for, I guess, literally being in the closet, then you got to stay in the closet. Like, it's just kind of, it's a balance, and NASCAR feels like they need to stay quiet right now, which is disappointing. It makes me kind of sad, but I get it, because
you're totally right.
There's a lot of things bigger than NASCAR right now going on in terms of, because it's not just NASCAR that are, getting rid of programs and stuff. It's so weird. The whole world's kind of getting behind this, like silencing the people who typically don't have a voice. So I think that's where, again, I look at the positives. Well, we never really had a voice to begin with, so you're not taking too much from us. We're still going to be here, and we're going to figure out how to represent ourselves in the ways that we feel authentic to each other. I will say that I've met some pretty amazing people at NASCAR. And I do really, really believe that there are some that are trying hard, and they feel restrained, but they're doing everything that they can, and they care about the sport, and they care about things that are important. So I know for them, it's got to feel even more gut wrenching, feeling like they're the enemy, and they're just like, what can we do? Right. Same as what Zack said. It's just like, they've got to just sit there and take it.
And I think that's why it's important still to be putting pressure on NASCAR and the other major motorsport racing series like F1 and IndyCar, just to say, hey, you can't just leave us behind like that. We are still here. Even if you're not going to acknowledge us, we are still loud and proud to be who we are. So, yeah.
What about, is Formula One done anything? I feel like the soar of new diverse fans and all of the corporate America that's jumped in, what are they doing?
That's the weird thing. And Formula One was one of the first to jump onto it. The We Race as One thing back 5 years ago, 2020. But I haven't seen anything. The teams participate. I think Mercedes, I don't know if they still do this, but they had the little rainbow emblem on their car. I know they posted it. And McLaren, I know the IndyCar era McLaren posted something. So I think the teams in F1 are more participating. F1 themselves, I haven't seen anything.
Well, and
I might be wrong.
F1 does have a policy that's I don't know the exact wording of it, but they're just they don't want you to talk about anything political, and LGBTQ issues likely falls under that in their terms. So,
well, were you guys surprised by Supercross and their posting?
Yeah, that was actually really cool to see. And then you look at the comments, and it's the drivers or the riders being like, "No." we talked about that our first June episode, and how I don't know, if I'm a rider in Supercross, even if I do feel homophobic in that way, I'm not gonna go out and just publicly say. Dude,
kudos for them for keeping the post up, despite all the internal pressure.
If I'm a rider in a sport, I'm not going to go out and just make my sport look bad by being I don't know.
It's a smaller pool of people.
I guess they obviously felt very comfortable to share what they thought. Maybe a little bit too comfortable.
Yeah. Well, Zack, is sponsorship difficult to navigate while being openly gay? We had another driver on last year, he's also an owner, Travis Shoemake over in NHRA, and we had him on last year, and he said that it most definitely is a struggle with sponsorship. What's your experience been with that?
Yeah, I'm thankful to be friends with Travis too, to have someone else
he's lovely
can compare these stories with, right, and the experiences. He in a way kind of motivates me. He's also not a quitter, and he figures out how the hell he's going to do it. Sponsorship sales, right? I think sales and sponsorship are tough in general, especially as where we're narrowing is a country and people tightening belts on spending. So sponsorship dollars are really kind of getting limited. So it's tough to begin with, but absolutely someone like me trying to overcome the additional adversity and figuring out how the brand storytelling piece makes sense to what I need corporate America. And then they look at something like NASCAR and they're like, where's the intersection? How does someone like Zack exist in NASCAR? And we can support him proudly to tell his story, but then also not be in the breach of what could be a downfall, right? So it's very tactful in how we approach these conversations. And again, the storytelling piece, how we inspire, how we tell the story, how we exist in the space. So it's super hard. I would be racing, right, if it was easier, and especially for the amounts that we need our partners to invest at, it makes it even more difficult.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't imagine like trying to make a sale for sponsorship, and it's like, where do I put this pride flag in my bio tactically? Like, is this costing me chances? Isn't that awful?
You want the T?
Well, if you
have a whole segment called the T,
we have the T, emergency T. Seriously,
right? I have 2 partnership decks, and they're both created in what they do and what they tell and share, completely different, and it's based off the conversations. One eliminates any mention of LGBTQ plus anything rainbow colored, and that's strictly to just say, I'm an athlete, and the property and the product is NASCAR, and we're one of the biggest sports in America. Do you want to go? And then the other one is the power behind the LGBTQ plus community and the power of diverse storytelling and what that can do. And most of the time, it's my tailored down deck that is being presented in conversations.
No rainbow at all?
No rainbow at all.
The damn Crayola box can't even catch it. Oh my gosh.
The black and white.
That's
and
what
gray
I don't
crayons.
get. That's in my job. That's come across in my job too. But my job involves art. Like, sorry, color wheel. Sorry, what do you think that was about? Like, what? Oh,
but I have more success putting that one forward than the other one. It sucks. It does. But if I want to race, I'm going to play the game that they're presenting me with, and I'm going to figure out how to win at that game. And I keep reminding myself in our time right now, I think me being visible and just being on the racetrack, I can use that opportunity just to be silent, but also be loud enough at the same time without having to, have a flag, a rainbow flag, or a color scheme to match it. It stinks, right? But if that's what they're going to do, we're going to figure out how to win at it, and we're still going to be seen.
Gosh, for sure. And to kind of add on to that, I have 2 versions of my resume too. Like, I have a version with this podcast on it and one without it. Because this podcast, I put a lot of work into. It's been 5 years we've been doing this. Like, it's a job basically.
If I were
and
to
it correlates to a lot of it correlates to a lot of career paths that I would like to take. So it's like, it's important job history for me. But if it's a certain place that I know wouldn't want that, I'm not going to put it on my resume for them. So it's a very real thing. I get it.
Right. Circling back to what I mentioned when I first started racing professionally at 16, it was struggling with this alternate version that we've all created of ourselves to show up when we're not comfortable. And it's just still that. I joke, I'm going to go back in the closet just so I can race again.
Right.
Don't tempt me.
Gotta go fast somehow. Yeah. And you kind of started the episode with this. You raced in the super bikes, and then you went away from racing for a bit because of the money. But then you really found yourself both in terms of accepting yourself as gay and everything. And that really pushed you to go into racing. Do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. It wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy for anyone, especially growing up in the world of professional sports and motorsports. I had to deal with every single harassment or nicknames or joke for like my fellow racers because I didn't have girlfriends. I wasn't going and getting the Umbrella Girls phone numbers. So I knew what it would be like, and I was like, I want to get absolutely away from this as much as possible because this sucks. And then I think I went wild. Not like I didn't go partying. I just was like, okay, I'm away from racing now. Now I'm just going to be who I am and
I'm free.
Who I want to be around.
Yeah.
And then from there it was like, well, you know what? I don't really care anymore, even though I secretly do. But
Right.
I'm gonna still show up. My family's so rooted, not in NASCAR, but in other forms. So I couldn't completely just hide from it. That was the hardest thing. But finding ways to be a part of our community more also inspired me. One part of my my friends always nickname me like, oh, you're Zack of all trades. I hosted drag shows for a whole year. Why? Because I met someone who I felt like was like me, right? She was a local drag performer where I currently live. She wanted to follow it as a full-time dream, but she couldn't financially quit her 2 jobs to just do drag because there wasn't enough consistent shows here in this small southern town. So I was like, you know what? I will host once a month for a whole year for you. And it turned to be a huge success. We were over capacity every single month, but it gave her and a few other local performers places to perform. And that's where I found a lot of confidence, is being around drag queens, right? Seeing them go out there and do what they want to do, and they fight for it, right? And they fight hard for it to do it.
And another question I have that just came to mind is, Zack and I do this podcast because it's big for representation for our community and the racing community. Do you think, like, in that period when you stepped away from racing, if there was like another gay driver that came along, like, do you think that would have been like an eye opener for you?
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%.
That's a good question.
I would have been like, it is. Yeah, it's great. I would have been able to see them do it. And same as kind of what I've been, the storytelling process to this point. I try and find inspiration in other people doing challenging things. And I'm like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? So I'm going to figure it out too. So I totally would. And, back to maybe why NASCAR isn't as strong as they want to be. They don't feel like they have an ally on track, right? They don't have someone representing that community currently. So maybe they felt like, well, we can't be too loud with no one out there. They're thinking, something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Zack, did you have any other questions before we get into our guest question?
No, you killed it. You had, that was a great question. That was my favorite question you asked, Alex. Like, that was.
Yeah, I'm glad I came up with that. I'm like, I'm
you're on it today.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Well, Zack with an H, we are going to ask you our guest question. It is Marry, Kiss, Wreck. It is the most recent winners in NASCAR, IndyCar, and F1 as of recording. We have Shane Van Gisbergen, Kyle Kirkwood, who has been on here all month, Zack.
He's been here because he won another race.
And George Russell. Who you got?
Well,
that's hard.
I'm a married man, so I'm wrecking them all.
You're wrecking them all.
They all deserve to be wrecked. They all win.
Hell yeah.
They win too much.
Maybe
George Russell's a brat. There you go. SVG wins enough at road courses. Yeah, there we go.
But yeah,
I'll tell you
what. Them all.
I ain't touching SVG after he was sick. He was sick when he won Mexico. I ain't touching him.
He said it was coming out both ends, right?
Both ends, I get, or both holes. I don't know what holes those were, but
I don't need to know that.
Listen, did no one not say, hey, let me pick up ChatGPT. I'm going to Mexico for the first time. What do I not do?
Right.
Don't drink the tap water. You're going to a foreign country. Drink bottled water. I'm assuming that's what's going on with everyone there.
I feel like NASCAR should have been like, hey guys, don't do that.
Is that what happened? Is that because Shane?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Well, Shane said he was doing a really good job avoiding and watching what he was putting in, but I guess water snuck through. I don't know.
Yeah. Depending on the food too, he could have ate. It could have been a heavy use of tap water.
And someone said the altitude could have impacted it. Of course it does. The altitude impacts everything. Why are you moody today? The altitude. God, that's what Carson should have told Ricky when he ran into him. It was the altitude, man. Sorry.
So I'm looking at this trio and I'm trying to figure out what I would do. I think I would also wreck SVG. Nothing against him.
Well, I'm marrying George Russell because he got F1 money. So
that's what? I'm changing my answer. I was just about to marry Kyle Kirkwood. You're right.
Well,
You're
no,
right.
yeah, because Kyle Kirkwood, I don't know. I think George is cuter than Kyle, but again, money. The money's the first choice I make. So
You're smart, Zach.
Yeah, that's my answer too.
gotta pay for
You
my
could go
ARCA
race.
ride.
You could go race at Daytona because
I gotta get my.
Yeah, that's
motor at
true.
Daytona.
You could Daytona
Girl.
money.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, Zack, Herrin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people follow you on social media? Keep up with you.
Just old Instagram, right? I'm not cool enough for TikTok. So yeah, just Zack.Herrin on Instagram.
And do you have like a website that people can find as well?
Yeah, just ZackHerrin.com.
All right. Well, that's another episode, another Pride Month guest episode down, Zack. And month is about over half over by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end here on Pride Month, but Pride Month's going to keep going all year long. We'll be here all year. Our Patreon members got this episode about a week early on our $5 tier at patreon.com/gayracingpod. And you can consider giving us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and consider liking and subscribing on YouTube. Follow the podcast at Gay Racing Pod on Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And follow Zack and I on Blue Sky and Twitter at Dreamy Zack Racing and at Newgaden.
We've been having a really good Pride Month here at the Gay Racing Podcast. And again, Zack, thank you so much for being a part of it for
Thank
us.
you.
Having a great discussion today. I loved everything we talked about.
Yeah, I loved learning about you. It was great.
No, thank y'all so much. More queers and gears, right? We'll figure out how to do it one day.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time here on the Gay Racing Podcast. Stay safe and have a good time.
Be gay.
Bye. And be gay.
Bye.
I didn't know what I was going to say. Bye.